I did everything that they tell you you're supposed to do to have this American dream. So I never thought health care would ruin me. I had to file bankruptcy. It was in an effort to save this house because the house had fell into foreclosure.
Facing the mortgage crisis, next on Black Nouveau. Hi, I'm Milton, Dockery.
And I'm Faithe Colas. Welcome to Black Nouveau. Whether you're a homeowner or a renter, the mortgage crisis affects us all. Last year, over 1 million homes nationwide were lost to foreclosure.
Closer to home. According to recent statistics, 9% of the mortgages in Wisconsin are in foreclosure or delinquent, and the African American community is disproportionately affected. On this special edition, we're going to examine the issue and offer solutions.
We'll go behind the statistics to show how the problem is affecting individuals. We'll hear from a homeowner as well as a renter and get insight from people on the front lines of the crisis. We begin with Liddy Collins, who spoke with a lender and some realtors about the problem and what homeowners should do.
Do people call you in a panic when you're about to lose your home?
No, that's one of the things that people don't do. And it would be good if they did do it. Call for help, but that's one of the things they don't do. And the mortgage company, it doesn't come a year later. It comes all during the year, because as you know, Wisconsin have 12 months for you can redeem your property, okay? And it's one of the few states that does. And so you've been getting notices for a year. So this is nothing new. And I guess the panic comes when you know that you've got to leave your home, okay? So the time to start doing something is before it happens, and right at the time that the mortgage company is notifying you, notify the mortgage company, talk to them.
The number one reason why people don't really call us in the beginning is because of pride. You know, like if I'm a family man, I'm used to taking care of my family, and now I have a situation that I can't handle, then I don't tell the family, and I try to do what's called a Band-Aid fix. So I fix it this month, hoping that it'll get better next month. And by the time I'm into the 11th month, I'm behind, so I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul.
The foreclosure epidemic points directly to the mishandling of home loan lending.
There's two types of lending. There's predatory lending and there's subprime lending, and they are different. The subprime lending is what we're experiencing the most, and subprime is when people don't really meet the criteria and the lender is doing things that may be considered legitimate, but side the normal qualifications for getting a loan. And as we have discovered, as all of this subprime lending has been uncovered, that there was in fact quite a bit of fraud that was being committed. The predatory lending is usually directed towards people who own homes. And that's where you find they get the card in the mail that says, come in and see us, we'll give you a great rate, and you can take the equity out of your home. And then they bump up the value of the property so that the person is not only left with a payment they can't make, but a home that has no value. So those are the two types of lending that have gone on. And they are primarily promoted in low to moderate income areas, regardless of race. You see most of them, though, in urban areas because there's a high concentration of low to moderate income homeowners. They're relying on people not being as educated as they should be about the borrowing process, the home buying process, and they take advantage of it.
Since this thing, the bubble has burst, is this still going on?
It's still going on. I'm completely amazed that with all the information that's out there, the newspapers, the radio, TV, that people have available to them, that they are still being driven by that desire to own a home. And I honestly believe from talking to some people that they think because of what's happened, that it's safe to go out and get a loan, and it is as long as you're doing it with a legitimate lender.
So, but how do they know it's legitimate?
They have to do their research and their homework. You know, your mother used to say to you, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. So if someone comes to you and starts talking about a low rate, no money down, cash back at closing, things like that, you can own this home worth $100,000 and you only make $7 an hour, you should start running and don't look back.
Milwaukee is one of the top 5 cities in terms of foreclosures in Wisconsin, with zip codes 53206, 08, 09, and 12 being the primary areas of concentration.
And we are joined by Earl Stanley from Remax Realty and Ken Davis with the Wells Fargo Bank. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me on Black Nouveau.
Thank you
for having me.
Earl, we just saw the video, and in it you mentioned that people wait too late to seek help. When is the best time?
The best time to actually get help is when you think you're going to miss that first payment. And the reason why I say that is the banks are being very proactive today in wanting to help buyers and sellers stay in their home. So the quicker you contact the bank, let them know what your situation is, they'll get you in touch with what's called a negotiator, and they will attempt to keep you in the house because they don't want houses back. They're not in the business of being in real estate. They're business of lending money for you to have a home. So that way you can contact them right away and they'll assign you a negotiator. That's the best time to call for help.
When you think you're going to miss
when
your
you
first
think
payment.
you're going to miss your first payment. Not when you actually miss it. When you think you're going to miss it, you want to call right away.
Okay. The video mentioned that homeowners have a year to deal with being foreclosed. Explain that process.
I saw that part, and I'm not familiar with the year before it's foreclosure, because the process normally starts that after the account is gone 45 days, the lender will send the customer out a notice of right to cancel. They have 15 days after that to clear that past due balance. After that, if it's not done, then the lender has the right to pursue legal actions against that borrower. So it could take longer, and it could be a swift type of thing as well. So I'm not familiar with the year part, though.
So you don't think it's just 1 year? It could vary.
It could vary, and the customer could prevent measures in that as well to delay that whole process. So
what would that be?
Well, the customer has to realize that the lender, just like Earl said, they really don't want the property. They basically will do what they can to help the customer through the process. A lot of times is the customer will not call that lender because they're just afraid. But the lender is there to help. So if they would just pick up the phone a lot of times and call the lender and say, I'm in this problem, what can you guys do for me? The lender will give them some type of programs or whatnot that they can do to basically get out of the situation that they're in.
Is that something that is explained to the home buyer when they're buying the home? If you run into a problem, call us in the beginning?
Certain title companies will emphasize that, certain title companies won't. It's not something that's commonly told to a customer at a closing, because when you're closing a loan, everybody's happy, and we don't want to think about the foreclosure side of it.
Sure. Are there still predatory loan organizations in the marketplace?
I'm going to defer that to Ken.
A lot of them have been weeded out with all the regulations that have been put out. It's hampered us, the ethical lenders that are out there. It's hampered us tremendously with all the regulations that have been added on to the new loans. But most of them, there are some that are still out there. You'll see the out-of-state calling and saying, hey, call us, great deal. But here again, if it sounds too good to be true, then walk away from it.
Why do you think the African American community is so vulnerable to these types of loans?
Well, one of the reasons I think is just lack of having the right information. And there have been so many agencies over the years that can get them the right information, but people, when they want to buy a home, they're so excited that they make emotional decisions versus accessing the right information that can help them. And that's the biggest factor, I think. You know, you listen to friends or you listen to somebody else, but there's been agencies like WIDA, like NACA, a lot of home buying agencies that are out there. They have these things going on in churches every Saturday. So the information is out there, but what happens is when they're excited about actually owning their own home, that emotion kicks in and all the logic goes away.
Can I add to that?
You sure can.
Just like Earl said, the biggest thing is with our community is we have to educate ourselves. We have the greatest tool in the world, which is the internet. You can go on the internet and find out just about anything you need to find information on. We have to educate ourselves in this. And then once you educate yourself, no one can take advantage of you.
How much longer do you think this crisis is going to go on in our last few seconds?
It's hard to predict how long this thing is going to last for us. Economists are saying that in 2010 we should see some relief.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us in Black Nouveau.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll keep this up.
And now to meet some of the people directly impacted by the crisis. Everett Marshburn spoke with a homeowner who did everything she thought she should be doing to pursue the American dream.
The name of my company is Christian DeGray Couture /myflowergirls.net. I'm a fashion designer. Currently, I'm designing special occasion wear for children, for teenagers, prom dresses, and just recently I'm adding a bridesmaid dress line to my business. I've been a designer for 30 years.
Joyce Gray was a successful businesswoman for decades, but it was the internet that put her company into high gear.
With the whole internet boom that was going on, it was really, I just couldn't believe it, that people were actually calling me on the phone to order dresses. So being a businesswoman, I decided to invest into more sewing machines. I bought tons of fabric, and I started to ask the customers just to send me the measurements. And I had about maybe 20 pictures of different designs, and I never looked back from that. Within, I would say, 2 years of doing business on the internet, I had managed to save up a nice amount of money. And so that started my whole thing of becoming a homeowner, because I had never owned a home through all those years. And so I decided I wanted to have my own home, somewhere I could work from. I could also have my mom here with me because she was getting older. And I embarked on that journey, and I went at it. Business got better. On average, I was probably selling about 100 dresses a month.
Business was good, but other problems soon surfaced.
I would say the third year in, health, I had no health care. I never had health insurance. I couldn't afford it. I never got sick. I just tried to take care of myself, but I had some tumors. And within 1 year, they went from the size of a lemon to the size of an 8-month baby. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had to go through tests. I was working with Columbia, St. Mary's, and my doctor is Dr. Seidel. And I have to say this because if it was not for him, I might be dead. I didn't have no health care, but he saw me anyway. We figured out that it wasn't cancer, and through that whole process, I had to pay. I had to pay for biopsies. They decided they wanted to give me some shots to try to shrink the tumors at $200 a shot. So I had to start paying for those. I had to pay for x-rays. I had to pay for medication. So one of my medications was $400. I think a little bit over $400. So it didn't take long to go through my reserve savings. Decided that I was going to need major surgery. I was losing too much blood. Went through the surgery. On the other side of it, they got the tumors. They weren't cancerous. But then I had a medical bill over my head. Didn't know what to do. Couldn't work for 4 months. When I was able to start working again, I had no more money. The business, I had to try to restart it. And that started this whole journey of running behind the bills, trying to get on top of them again. I was about a year behind when the foreclosure process started. I think I had made maybe 1 or 2 payments during that year. I felt ashamed. That's the first thing, because I kept blaming myself. If I hadn't gotten sick, did I do the wrong thing by purchasing the home? Did I do, I just blamed myself for something that was beyond my control.
But she didn't give up. She looked for help.
I found out about an organization called Acorn Housing, and they were supposed to be able to help to renegotiate my mortgage. I had nowhere else to turn, so I went to them. It took a while. It took a lot of patience. It took me just to keep thinking positive, but they managed to renegotiate my mortgage. My mortgage was over $1,500. Now it'll be around $950. And I probably can even get it a little less if I can lower my escrow some. Most people feel ashamed and they're not reaching out for help because of it. On TV, all you hear is, if their homes are in foreclosure, it's because they're irresponsible. I was not irresponsible.
Indeed, she wasn't. Joining us now is Angela Moraney, Midwest Regional Director for Acorn Housing, the agency that is helping Joyce overcome her mortgage crisis. Angela, welcome to Black Nouveau.
Thank you for having me.
Angela, how typical is Joyce of the people that you see, and what type of services do you provide?
Unfortunately, she's very typical of the people that we see. The media would like you to believe that she's one in a few, when in actuality, she's probably over 50% of the people that are struggling. And she actually has a multitude of issues in one. She had the health issue, which brought on the lack of, or the elimination of her income, which led into her foreclosure.
Is that pretty typical of people you see?
Very
various
typical.
problems?
Very typical.
What is the common mistake people make who are in foreclosure?
Not contacting us, not answering the phone from their lender, not opening the mail, little things like that. And what they do is they basically just shut down because the fear, paralyzes them. They don't know what to do.
So in essence, what you're saying, as soon as you receive something in the mail, you should be proactive and act on it.
Most definitely.
Thank you. Once the homeowners are able to get assistance or even delays on their mortgage, they aren't out of the woods yet, are they?
No. They have to basically contact us. What people don't realize, and our most difficult job, is letting people know that we're here to help them and for free. Look out for people that ask you for money up front. That's a red flag. Look out for anybody that's saying, don't pay your mortgage, pay us. What we tell you to do, pick up the phone, open your mail, call us. If they stop accepting your payments, start saving your payments.
Now, some people going into foreclosure declare bankruptcy. Is that a good idea?
Well, it depends on the circumstance. And if they decide to go into bankruptcy, their attorney can better advise them, but they should remember that it does not stop us from helping them.
So regardless of whether the situation, bankruptcy or whatever the case may be, you're still available to help?
Almost definitely.
Definitely. Now, are there financial guidelines your agency used to offer assistance?
The financial guidelines is I can't afford to pay my mortgage. That's it.
So basically, anyone that has a mortgage problem or something of that nature can come in and see you.
Most definitely.
Is there anything else you'd like for us to know about your agency, Angela?
Well,
in terms of the housing issue?
The housing issue is basically what we do. We live and breathe, foreclosure and first-time home buying and credit counseling. But because the foreclosure issue is the biggest thing, what people should know is to call us. We have a toll-free number. It's 888-409-3557, or they can visit us on the web. It's acornhousinghelp.org.
And you're located where?
315 West Court Street. We're on the second floor, and Court Street, it's just off of King Drive, across from the Manpower parking structure.
Homeowners aren't the only ones caught in the mortgage crisis. Renters are often left homeless through no fault of their own. Shaquita Gray is not related to Joyce Gray, but she did have problems with her landlord. Liddy Collins has that story.
She's not returned any of my phone calls. I even called to put out an SOS to say, if you could please just help me move out of the premises. Still nothing, no return calls. I give her a number for references, no return calls. I'm stuck. I just really feel like I'm stuck.
Shaquita Gray is a tenant who's starting all over. Gray found out the place she was renting was in foreclosure when the county sheriff dropped foreclosure information to the house.
It's been hard. I really am not going to have anywhere to live right now. Again, I am caught in the middle because I have paid my rent every month on time in advance, and I am still stuck with needing a place to stay, and there aren't very many options for someone that is unemployed. Even with having Section 8 housing voucher information or having that, it still is not a great help if you're unemployed. So I'm kind of stuck right now.
So when you first received it, you were working, and how did this all happen?
It unfolded in January when I paid several months' rent in advance. And less than a week later, I received a foreclosure packet stating that we would eventually be, the house here would be foreclosed on. From that point, I decided to try and save money, but then I lost my job in April. From there, I just got stuck with, okay, need to find a job, also need to find a house. And the two they're colliding, so it's kind of hard, it's really hard.
Are there agencies you're working through to help you get through this?
I have attempted to seek some additional help. However, there aren't very many options. There was one with UMOS on Capitol that were able to give some help. However, that did not go through for whatever reasons. The landlord just did not want to rent to me, so that didn't go through.
Gray, a single parent of 3 children, short-term goals are to find stable housing and to finish school. She has plans to relocate.
At this point, it does look like there is a gentleman in Chicago, Illinois, that is willing to rent to me. Very nice. On the east side of the city, has a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo, and he's willing to accept my rent assistance. And he knows that I am unemployed, so he's willing to help me with that.
And so you're going to do the job hunt there then?
Yes, I'm going to hopefully be with the shared aquarium doing something part-time and starting radiology courses at the Malcolm X College there.
Have you spoken with the landlord? Has she spoken with you at all?
She will not return any of my phone calls because obviously she knew that she was being not honest, you know, in the beginning, even from the start. So I have no contact with her at all, unfortunately.
Wow, she just let it just drop.
She dropped, and she didn't even show up at court. I would love to have, it would be nice if I had something to say. It's just it's heartbreaking when you trust the person, you live in their house, so you trust them to give your money to them, assuming that you would have somewhere to live. It's unfortunate that a lot of people are taking that source, for granted. They're, not being honest, not being forthright and fair, receiving money, and I think it's just wrong. I believe if you have a place and it is going into foreclosure, I believe you should let the tenant know so that they can get out of it before they become, quote unquote, attempting homelessness.
And to explain what rights renters do have is Mark Sillerman, staff attorney for Legal Action of Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thank you for inviting me.
What are the legal rights that renters do have in Wisconsin?
Very briefly, renters up until recently had very few rights when it came to their landlord being foreclosed upon. Mm-hmm. There is a new law that went into effect recently that gives them various protections. So this excellent new law provides that the bank or lender has to give notice to the current residential tenants throughout the stages of a foreclosure. It also requires that the landlord tell any prospective residential tenants, guess what, I'm in foreclosure, and the landlord has to tell the prospective tenant when this redemption period is and when it ends. A redemption period is simply a period of time in which, after a foreclosure judgment is entered, the owner has a chance to pay off the judgment and costs and reacquire the property. And that's important for a tenant or a prospective tenant to know, so they can gauge how much time they can remain as a tenant. In Wisconsin, a foreclosure judgment will generally terminate the tenancy. What this new law does is not only provide for notices to tenants and prospective tenants, it also allows an extended period of time in which they may remain a tenant after the sale after the foreclosure judgment. So not only does a tenant have some right to be given notice, they don't have to leave immediately. So this new law helps with the notices, gives the extended period of time in which the tenant may live there. It also requires the landlord to put in the lease or a rental agreement that there has been a foreclosure filed, and so there's this disclosure requirement. Also very beneficial to tenants who generally will not get their security deposit or any prepaid rent returned because the landlord's in a difficult situation. The landlord who's being foreclosed upon doesn't necessarily have money to pay the tenant the security deposit back or prepaid rent back. What this law also provides is that the tenant does not have to pay during the last month in possession up until 2 months following the month of the confirmation. So there's this timeline and protections, extended time to stay, and withholding the last month's rent. And there's an additional new law that was passed, a federal law that affects tenants who have leases. they are allowed under that law to live out the remainder of their lease.
Okay.
And there's a kind of a lease called Section 8,
Okay.
and which the new owner must honor. So lots of new protections in
Lots of new
place.
protections, lots of new laws. How can people reach you if they have more questions?
People should call Legal Action of Wisconsin at 414-278-7722, and then we can give the information as to our intake. These are low income, we represent people who are low income individuals and families.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank you
Black
for
Nouveau.
having me.
Before we close, we'd like to remind you to log on our website, mortgagecrisis.mptv.org, to get more information.
And to dial 211 to connect with a number of local agencies that are providing free services to help people in mortgage crisis. No one should feel alone.
And that wraps up this special edition of Black Nouveau.
Remember, in the coming week, do something to expand your world. Good night.
Good night.